I didn't have a PS3 when Demon Souls came out. Um, I didn't get a PS3 until it was like 2011. But then my first one got stolen, and I didn't get another one until early 2012. And that's when I got Demon Souls. Well, I might have been like more like mid 2012 is when I got Demon Souls, like May or June, and it introduced a completely new type of game for me. One that combined really good present day action adventure with an old school, really hardcore difficulty twist to it, and it was a very interesting. It was a very interesting experience because I never really played anything uh, challenging like that. I mean, like I may have played a few games that were as challenging or even more challenging than Demon Souls, but Demon Souls was challenging in its own unique way. Um, Challenging games I played in the past include games that had, checkpoints. Like if you died at a ridiculously hard boss, it would start you off right at the boss. You know, um, Demon Souls to me was kind of like the first of its kind, or at least in its generation. It brought back a forgotten feeling in video games when you beat a really old Castlevania game that's hard as hell, and you have that feeling of reward, of accomplishment, because of how it made you work. It made you work for it. It didn't hold your hand. You know, Demon Souls, only had a checkpoint after you beat a boss. Just like how in an NES game, you get a level, you make it to the next level after you beat a boss. It gives you a password, like in Castlevania. Demon Souls kind of reminded me of Castlevania. Is that it made you fight really hard enemies. Um, you know, just jump over crazy shit in Castlevania, and it kind of had that same feel to it. A lot of games in the late 80s and early 90s were like that. Most games back then were like Demon Souls. And I loved how they brought it back. They brought back that really challenging thing that, you know, most games nowadays are watered down and they're easy. Demon Souls created a franchise unlike any other where it reward was the game, and and that was it. And when I beat Demon Souls, I don't think I ever felt better in my entire life. That moment I beat that moment I beat a specific boss. It felt so fucking good, especially after you die. The more you die in a boss, the better you feel after you beat that boss. There were a couple bosses in this game that were way too easy, like the leechmonger, or the educator, or whatever it's called, or the um what was it? What was the other one? I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, the dirty colossus in the second part of the Valley of Defilement. There were a few easy bosses. The game itself was so punishing, yet so rewarding, and it ushered forth a future of legendary experiences. 2 years after Demon Souls came out, this masterpiece came out, Dark Souls. It took the difficulty and rewardment. Is that even a word? It should be, because it's Dark Souls. Rewarding experience. It took the rewarding aspect of Demon Souls and made it into open world, where now it's no longer in 5 stages connected by like a Nexus hub. It's no longer like that. Now it's all over the place. It's open world. You can explore, you can discover. And at that point, I was blown away. Between all the enemies and the bosses, there were also these mini bosses that don't respawn after you kill them, and it added so much intricacy, and it was so complex, and yet it all worked out in the end. There were a couple spots where there were a couple areas like Blighttown and the Duke's Archives where there are so many enemies in the area that it often brought the frame rate down, and that was kind of a shame. But apart from that, the game, the whole design of the game, and just the whole world and the lore and the story, it is now considered one of the greatest video games of all time. And it's a lot of people's like favorite game ever. Um, Dark Souls was one of the most uh, inspirational, not inspirational. It was one of the most inspiring games of the last generation because it just the whole open world brought everyone's attention, and in retrospect, people don't even look at games like Skyrim anymore. They look at Dark Souls, which came out around the same time as Skyrim, and unfortunately at the time it was overshadowed by Skyrim. But years from now, I think more people are starting to look at Dark Souls than Elder Scrolls. Um, and despite the technical issues, it is my favorite world uh, of the Souls series, and I probably enjoy it more than all the other ones. I often go back to Dark Souls 1, no matter how old it is, or how outdated it is, or how crappy the camera angle is, because there's just something about it. It's so not perfect. It's not a perfect game, but it's so special, and it was the first of its kind. Demon Souls was too, but Dark Souls even more so, the first of its kind. Demon Souls Demon Souls set the bar for difficult modern games, while Dark Souls, which kept the difficulty of Demon Souls, raised the bar, or you can even see it set the bar for open world games because of the whole interconnected areas and whatnot. And it kind of, this is going to sound a little bit stupid, but it actually kind of reminded me of the original Resident Evil. How you have like the mansion and like the garden and the guest house or whatever it's called, the dormitory, and like the laboratory and the underground tunnels, and it had all these areas that were all connected. That's kind of the feeling that you get in Dark Souls. It's like the Resident Evil 1 feeling, which I really loved, and that's something. Once again, that's something they brought back. They brought back to life in the gaming industry. So that's Dark Souls 1. Now we have Dark Souls 2. What can I say about Dark Souls 2? Technically, like I said in my review of Dark Souls 3, it was technically an improvement over Dark Souls 1. Sorry, I kind of shook the camera there. It was technically an improvement in terms of frame rate and graphics, and overall, it was a very well made video game. It was very well solid video game making. The problem is there's a lot of reasons why people claim this is the worst in the series, and for a few legitimate reasons. One is that the world itself was a little generic. It was a step down from Dark Souls 1. It was still cool, but it just wasn't as interesting or memorable in terms of the environments, the art direction, the boss designs, and it just kind of fell short. I didn't mind it too much, but a lot of people did. And some of the leveling up stats were a little messy. I remember the magic system used to be good in this game, but later on they kind of nerfed the damage because they thought that the magic was a little overpowered in this game. But If there's one thing this game did right, it was the online component, the PvP, which back in PS3, you didn't need PlayStation Plus to play, you know, PvP. I suck at the PvP, but I have to admit, it was so solid in this one. It was the best PvP yet, and it probably still is. Um, and it won various Game of the Year awards, but that's only because it wasn't really a good year in video gaming. 2014 kind of sucked for video games. It came out the same year as Dragon Age Inquisition and Shadow of Mordor, and that's about it. Basically, these three games were competing for Game of the Year, and I think, I think Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Dragon Age won over Dark Souls 2, but Dark Souls 2 still held the number 3 spot. It was still, despite being disappointing after what we got from Dark Souls 1, it was still considered one of the best games of 2014. Um, so yeah, that's Dark Souls 2. Now, we're venturing off into next gen land. If I can find the game, that is. Here it is. Bloodborne. This isn't classified as a Souls game, but it has like the same gameplay as Dark Souls. Um, it's my favorite From Software game. I can't say it's my favorite Souls game because it's not a Souls game. It's my favorite From Software game though. Everything about it to me was near perfect in every way. If you haven't seen it already, watch my Bloodborne review that I put up on July 2015. Obviously not July 2014 or July 2016, because, well, you know why. So July 2015 is when I put up my review. I didn't get this game until a little bit after it came out, because when this game came out, like Demon's Souls, when this game came out, I did not have the console at the time. I got a PS4 in June 2015. So, Bloodborne is awesome. Some Dark Souls fans don't really care for it, but I really loved it all the way. There was just one minor setback, and that was the Chalice dungeons, which took up roughly like half the space of the fucking disc. The whole there was so much content towards the Chalice dungeons, it was dumb. But, and by the way, the Chalice dungeons are like these really repetitive trials of challenge that aren't important. They're completely 100% optional, but I just didn't like them. Bloodborne had a very gothic, Victorian era style architecture to it. The art decoration, the art direction, the world, the design of the bosses, the design of everything. It was just such a beautiful looking game. The combat was way more fast paced than Dark Souls, and it was just an adrenaline rush. It wasn't as hard as the Souls games, at least in my opinion. It was easier. It's the easiest one in my opinion. But there's just something about it that I really love. I can't put my finger on it. I really can't. I just have a special thing for Bloodborne. It didn't really do anything like new or innovative, but it helped put the name, it helped put the reputation of From Software on next gen, which is something that Dark Souls 2 didn't do until later in 2015. The Scholar of the First Sin edition of Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 came out after the PS4 and Xbox One came out, so I don't know why they weren't released on next gen, on the newer gen consoles in the first place. But anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure this game did this come out after or before the Scholar of the First Sin? I don't remember. I don't know. It could have been after, but you know, who knows. So that's Bloodborne. And now, guys, we have Dark Souls 3. Do you see where I'm going at now? Assuming that you saw my fucking 50-minute long review. Do you see why I said what I said? I mean, Bloodborne took things to a whole new level in gameplay. Um, Dark Souls 1, again, it revolutionized the industry. Demon Souls, you know, I mean, come on. That started something new. Dark Souls 2, not so much. Dark Souls 2 added a few new things on its own, but it didn't really raise the bar in any respect. You know, it's great, but at least it tried doing new things. Dark Souls 3 is just like a combination of the previous great games, and I can't get over the fact that it's so similar. It's not different enough. Out of all 5 of these games, to me, this is by far the least distinctive one. Now, it continues off with my favorite lore in the series, Dark Souls 1, and it features a lot of lore such as, you know, whether Aldrich is actually Gwendolyn, and Gwen's firstborn, the Nameless King, and it has all these connections, and it did right. Like it did right what Dark Souls 2 did wrong, the lore, and I like that. I love that. But I'm talking about the gameplay here. You're taking like I want to say, because it was on the same engine as Bloodborne, it was made with the same engine as Bloodborne, had the same fast-paced combat as Bloodborne, but not really the same combat as Bloodborne per se, more like the same feel of combat, the same flow of combat as Dark Souls 1, but it also suffered from the enemy tracking of Dark Souls 2. And the linearity of Dark Souls 2, and the frame rate of Dark Souls 1, and the bugs from God knows what. I mean, since when does a Dark Souls game have bugs? That's another thing. Like, what? Come on. Come on. I've never played a Souls game that was, like, buggy. Why does this game have bugs in it? How does that happen? I mean, for God's sake, it's not even an American developer. It's a Japanese developer. How does that have bugs in it? You know, I mean, like, games like Dragon Age and Elder Scrolls and fucking Fallout, you know, they have bugs all the time because we have really greedy developers over here. But I mean, Japan, I mean, come on, they have very professional developers. You know, they have From Software, they have Atlas. But I mean, come on, man. I was so shocked when I saw bugs in this game. It disappointed the fuck out of me. Okay, you know, I can't believe people aren't complaining about this game. Because it was directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki. I think that's his name. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name in any way. I'm beginning to feel like people are praising this simply because it's the same director as Dark Souls 1 and that they're in denial. Because I know what Dark Souls fanboys like. They like the open world of Dark Souls 1, and they love the lore. They love good lore regardless of which one it is, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, whatever. And I can't help but think that if Dark Souls 3 was directed by anyone else and it came out the same way, people would be bursting in flames. Like if Dark Souls 2 was directed by Miyazaki and it came out the way he intended it, which probably wouldn't be that much different from the final product. Again, he supervised it. I mean, he knew what was going on. I'm sure he didn't agree with everything that happened in Dark Souls 2, but you know, he knew about it. He saw the final product before we did. So, yeah. How could you not be disappointed in expecting a game like Dark Souls 1, but having a game that plays out more like Dark Souls 2? And I don't mean that in terms of how it looks, I mean that in terms of how it plays. Like where you go, and how frequently you travel through bonfires. It is a copy of Dark Souls 2. It is literally a reskin of Dark Souls 2. You know, it's not okay to be biased. Ever. I don't remember any situation where I felt that me being biased or discriminating helped anyone or any cause or did anything beneficial, because in the end you have to look at it in an individual light, how well this game plays, not just because of whose name is on it. You know, say if I was a filmmaker and I made one incredible movie out of 10 shitty ones, would that automatically make me a good director just because I redeemed myself? Or in this case, in Miyazaki's case, he made one great game or two great games and one not so great game, or three great games if you count Bloodborne, and one not so great game. I suppose he's still a great director, but all the more reason why I'm disappointed that he made this. But I'll get to that part later. Let me continue on with what I was saying about the whole filmmaking process. Is that you shouldn't you shouldn't like rank a director based on one thing. You grade him based on his body of work and how good he is in general. The guy who directed Spotlight, and how Spotlight is a great movie and how it's very well written. He also directed a really bad movie right before then called The Cobbler with Adam Sandler. Would that make him a great director just because he made Spotlight? Well, sure, he's on a road. He's on a good road to success now because now he knows how to make good movies. But until then, he's still a mediocre overall director. He's not like Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese, where the vast majority of his movies are like really fantastic. No, he made one good project and that's it. People tend to set their bar when a certain person does one great thing and they automatically expect that everything that follows it to be as good. And a lot of times they set themselves in denial because, well, let's face it, not everything is as good as, a certain thing. Like Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 1 became like the pinnacle after Dark Souls 2 came out. And here's where I get to my next point. So many people complain about Dark Souls 2, which criticism, some of it is legitimate, others is just absolute fucking bullshit. But anyway, a lot of fans complained so much about Dark Souls 2 that they wanted a Dark Souls 3. I don't know if that's exactly how it went. All I know is there's an article, I forgot the name of it, I don't know if it was Variety or whatever, but there's an article out there that states that Miyazaki did not want to make a Dark Souls 3. He had his mind set on Bloodborne at the time. That was the game that he wanted to make. That was the game that he wanted to be proud of. But no. Fans wanted another Dark Souls 3. Another Dark Souls game. They wanted Dark Souls 3 because of Dark Souls 2. I am confident that this was the original plan. There wasn't supposed to be a Dark Souls 3. And there probably wasn't supposed to be a Dark Souls 2 either. I think Miyazaki wanted a Demon Souls, a Dark Souls, and then a Bloodborne, and that's it. No sequels. No sequels. I don't know why a Dark Souls 2 was made. I don't know if Miyazaki gave permission. I'm not too sure the whole history on Dark Souls 2. But his mind was not set in Dark Souls 3. His heart was not he didn't put his heart into Dark Souls 3 because he didn't want to make Dark Souls 3. And now it's probably not a game he's too proud of making because he's simply not. He just simply didn't want to make it. If someone didn't like a game that I made, I probably wouldn't have made a sequel just to make them happy. I wouldn't make a fan service game because it's something that I'm not proud of. I'm not gonna waste my time trying to make other people satisfied. I mean, video games have gone so far now to the point where they're often considered like art. Like video games are kind of like art now almost. And when you force someone like that to waste their fucking time and their resources and their money just to make you fucking satisfied, you should be ashamed of yourself. You all should be. I mean, I was a little upset when I played Dark Souls 2 as well, but I wasn't like fucking, you know. I mean, come on. How whiny can you be? To the point where you drive a man to do that. That's not cool. That ain't cool. I did like how Dark Souls 3 concluded the series appropriately, unlike Dark Souls 2 where it kind of had its own story. Like none of the lore in Dark Souls 2 was even really connected to Dark Souls. Like as far as like the series timeline and the story, Dark Souls 2 doesn't really make much sense. But still, I mean, Jesus, leave the fucking man alone. If you don't want Dark Souls 2 to exist and you don't want to think about it as a sequel, then simply don't play Dark Souls 2. So I hope you're happy, because Dark Souls 3 is out. And I hope it's everything you guys asked for. Because it's not really what I asked for. It's not. Every other From Software game before this has done something new or interesting. This one is just flat out generic and bland. And it just pisses me off thinking about it. Thinking about how good it could be. How much better it could have been if they had spent a little bit more time on it. Or if Miyazaki spent more, you know, into more ideas into it. Put more ideas into it. Instead he just rehashed all his previous work, which was no hard feat because he already knew how to do it. He wasn't really thinking about himself when he made Dark Souls 3. He was thinking about you guys and your fucking selfish, you know, wants and needs. Oh my god, shame on you. I fucking hate these fanboys. I mean, no offense, but Dark Souls has probably the worst fan community out there. I mean, for a bunch of people who condescend on others of being casual, you have a tendency to complain and whine and bitch a lot. I think you're a bunch of fucking hypocrites. That's what I think. Like, you praise something. I remember people praising Dark Souls 3 before it even came out because it was made by the same director as 1. And furthermore, I remember people complaining about Dark Souls 2 before it even came out because it wasn't directed by the same guy who directed Dark Souls 1. Dude, like, the same guy can't direct every fucking game. Like, get the fuck over yourself. I'm sick of the whole Dark Souls 2 being worse than by far, by a fucking, light year. Whoa! Being like the fucking. They act like it's the worst game of all time, I mean, I understand that when it comes to rating from worst to best, there's always a worst. And yeah, I suppose Dark Souls 2 may be the worst. Although I could argue that Demon Souls is probably even worse than Dark Souls 2, but in retrospect anyway. The hypocrisy and the whole biased fucking attitude is so stinky. It fucking smells in this fan base. So I consider myself a Dark Souls fan, but I don't consider myself a Dark Souls fanboy. I don't consider myself one of those people who shits on anyone else who doesn't like Dark Souls. I simply, personally, I love Dark Souls on a personal level. I'm not going to ridicule others for not liking it or for saying it's too hard, because most gamers aren't hardcore gamers. Most gamers are casual gamers. So when you call someone a casual gamer, on average, you're basically calling them a gamer. So yeah, fuck you. Most gamers are casual gamers, also because they don't have time to become hardcore gamers. In order to beat these types of games, you need to learn from your mistakes, and you need to persevere and just keep going at it and going at it until you eventually beat it. Most people don't have that much time on their hands. Most people have families. Most people have fucking, weddings to go to. Most people have jobs. Most people who have girls who sit on their fucking dicks. Alright? They're not fucking nerds who just sit in here like me. Most people have a life. I'm sorry, but that's true. And I'll admit that, I'm hardcore because I don't have much of a life. But I'm not going to judge other people just because they don't have time to be hardcore. You understand now? That's why I hate Dark Souls fanboys, man. They're just like fucking. They're blinded by their own. They're blinded by their own judgment. Oh shit. But I love playing the games in general. So, yeah, just I hope that a few months from now, people are gonna take a step back, and hopefully Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 will get a fair amount of criticism, because I'm just sick and tired of Dark Souls 2 making Demon Souls and Dark Souls look perfect. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, it really doesn't. I mean, like, whichever Mass Effect game is the worst one, it doesn't matter because they're all fucking amazing, Well, Dark Souls, it's kind of the same way. It just happens that one is a little bit worse than another one, and that's okay. But I'm sick and tired of people hating on Dark Souls 2. It's pissing me off. It's starting to get real fucking annoying. And it's gonna make me want to punch your fucking face in. Because it's really not a bad game. It's like It's actually really good. Like, it's fun. It's like objectively a well-made video game. All the complaints about, the world being generic and the lore being shitty. Okay, it's legit, but it's also subjective. There are people out there who prefer the world of Dark Souls 2 over Dark Souls 1. There are people out there who prefer the story of Dark Souls 2 over Dark Souls 1. But don't fucking judge them, low just because they have a different opinion than you. I mean, God. Spare me the fucking hipster talk, man.